interesting things happen. I think we're making a lot of progress on Ukraine and Russia. There's always conflict, but I think we're making a lot of progress getting it stopped. We just want to see thousands of soldiers a week stop dying, because they're dying at numbers that probably haven't seen since the Second World War for no reason whatsoever. It's a shame. It's a shame. So I think we are making progress. It's step by step.
Trump always
Tremendous hatred between
right there in the background.
the leaders. What you call
his
the
right
whole
hand
situation leaders.
His right side.
But I think we'll get that done. And the Middle East, a lot of things are happening with respect to Iran, and we'll see if we can get something done. And if not, it's going to be a bad situation, very, very bad.
Oil sanctions that you mentioned today, when will they start?
So we have a couple. We have the secondary tariffs on Iran, and we'll probably give it a couple of weeks. And if we don't see any progress, we're going to put them on. We're not putting them on right now, but if you remember, I did that 6 years ago, and it worked very well, to put it mildly. And if the election weren't rigged, you would have a situation where there would be no problem with Iran today. But it was. Biden didn't know what he was doing, obviously. And we have a very rough situation in the Middle East because of that. You ended up with October 7th, and you would have never had October 7th, and you would have never had Russia going into Ukraine likewise. But we're going to make a decision on secondary tariffs on Iran based on whether or not they're going to make a deal. If they're going to make a deal, then we're never going to put secondary tariffs on. We're going to hope they have a great, long, and successful life as a country. But we'll see what happens. It's very interesting. I can't imagine them doing anything else but making a deal. I would prefer a deal to the other alternative, which I think everybody in this plane knows what that is. And that's not going to be pretty, and I do not prefer that.
So, Mr. President, on the tariffs, you said that you were at one point that the tariffs Tuesday would be more conservative than what people might think. There's reports that you are maybe now looking to make the tariffs higher. So are you weighing higher tariffs? Or
the tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades. They ripped us off like no country's ever been ripped off in history. And we're going to be much nicer than they were to us, but it's substantial money for the country, nevertheless.
And what he's basically saying is that the 25% tariffs that's going in place on autos and other things ultimately is the thing that we need to focus on, because what people are not taking into consideration is that other countries have been charging us, and some of them haven't been necessarily labeling it as tariffs. And I've explained this on the Millionaire Morning Show that over in China, who stole a lot of our proprietary technology from a lot of the auto manufacturers, which is why you see them now being able to develop cars at the rate that they're developing them, even though they didn't have any of the technology or any of the advantages that they have now. But what they required automakers to do for a long time was also partner at least 50-50. So you was never able to, prior to Tesla opening up in China, you were never able to actually open up a plant by yourself or to do business and 100% own yourself in China. Ford Motor Company, General Motors, and so on and so forth. Even other foreign automakers would have to partner with a company 50-50 and sharing the profits while at the same time sharing their technology, which is what helped them be able to develop their auto industry in the first place, right? And so in order to do business over there, which wasn't even really profitable for our automakers, in order to do business with emerging technologies and the emerging population being able to afford cars, eventually they pushed them out, but you had to basically partner. And then in addition to that, in other countries, including China, if you were importing vehicles and you were not manufacturing vehicles there, they charged you a higher tariff, basically a import tax, to export over into their country. And, you know, we've basically sold out. So our leaders historically have sold out because they did not allow for us to benefit. Instead, they got rich and sold the whole country out, which is one of the reasons why under Clinton, under Bush, and so on and so forth, you had so many automakers divesting, getting rid of jobs, moving jobs overseas, increasing profits within the country, and not reinvesting back in the United States American manufacturing. So much so to where they designated it as you are still making, cars in America or North America if you just assemble here, or even if you in China, I mean not in China, in Mexico or Canada, it's still considered North America for you to be able to make cars here, so that we'll then be able to justify and say, hey, we still keeping it with the North American Free Trade Agreement. And no, it's not happening. So they've been ripping this off for decades. That's why you've seen an exodus of manufacturing inside of the United States of America. Now you see an influx of companies coming back and bringing back manufacturing and saying that we're either going to invest here or we're going to expand our footprint here, which obviously is going to create more jobs. So well done. Only 2 months in, but we're getting there.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so you're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right?
No.
All countries? All of the countries.
Is it across the board?
Not 10. I don't know who told you 10 or 15
Well,
countries.
we heard that. So we heard that you were going to aim for the 15%.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Okay, so how many countries will be in that initial tranche?
You'd start with all countries, so let's see what happens. There are many countries involved.
On the Russia?
I haven't heard a rumor about 15 countries, 10 or 15
So you're
countries.
starting with all countries?
Well, essentially, all of the countries that we're talking about, wouldn't be talking about all countries. That's not a cutoff. And if you look at the history and you look at what's happened to us, you go to certain places, go to Asia, and you take a look at every single country in Asia, what they've done to the United States in trade, and by the way, in military in a certain way. You look at, take a look at trade with Asia, and I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely, and but we are going to treat them. We're going to be much more generous to them in terms of heart. We're going to be much more generous than they were to us.
You said that
how soon are you considering
you said you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election, was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second, because Biden was so bad. He did such a bad job. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm popular, if you want to know the truth. I think I'm popular because we've done a great job. I think we've had the best almost 100 days of any president. And most people are saying that. And it's an honor. We're bringing back our country. We're respected as a country again. And we're strongly respected. And people are amazed. I was with some very important people today, and they said that they've never seen a turnaround of a country as fast as this. Even look at our border. We have nobody coming in. And you can come into our country, but you have to come in legally. But we have nobody coming in to our country. It's almost shut down. They've never seen anything like this.
At an appropriate
The
precedent.
Constitution limits a president to 2 terms. Is it your understanding that they have to
I don't
be?
even want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think that's an appropriate precedent to set, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a third term?
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. We have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
So you said you were on.
That's pretty crazy to even think about. Me personally, I don't think that we should go against the Constitution. If it was within the Constitution for Trump to be able to run a third term, I would absolutely rock with it. But, however, personally, I think that he's doing a phenomenal job. I think that he'll go down as the greatest president in history. However, I would never go against the Constitution. We are a republic that is governed by the Constitution, and ultimately, we run a democratic process. But I definitely would not want to go against the Constitution. So I'm not really sure how they're going to justify this. I don't know if they're going to say that they broke it up, and because he won in 2016 and then he won in 2024/25, then that would justify. I don't know what this is. I don't know if they're trying to amend the Constitution or what, but that would be pretty wild to think that they are actually considering running for a third term. I think that if it was possible, he would win without even a doubt. However, I wouldn't want to change the Constitution. I think that Congress deserves term limits. So, I would prefer to see the transition and the passing of the torch over to somebody like a J.D. Vance. But, you know, he's not saying that he's going to run a third term. He's just saying that people are saying that they want him to run for a third term. But it's too early to even have that conversation in the first place. But that would absolutely be crazy. I don't know how they would try to pull that off.
So with Putin, would you say your relationship with Vladimir Putin is at its lowest point right now?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go back on his word. You're talking about Putin. I don't think he's going to go back on his word. I've known him for a long time. We've always gotten along well, despite the Russia hoax. It's a hoax created by Clinton and Schiff and all of these lunatics. And that really was a dangerous point. That was a very dangerous thing they did to this country. It was a pure, unadulterated scam, hoax. But no, I think he'll be okay. But if he isn't, I was disappointed in a certain way. Some of the things that were said over the last day or two having to do with Zelensky, because when he considers Zelensky not credible, he's supposed to be making a deal with him, whether you like him or you don't like him. So I wasn't happy with that. But I think he's going to be good. And I certainly wouldn't want to put secondary tariffs on Russia, but if they were put on, it would not be very good for them. We put secondary tariffs on, as you know, in Venezuela, and it's had a very strong impact on Venezuela. You know that every ship just got out and they left. A lot of them left. They dropped the hoses right into the ocean and they left. They didn't want to be there for a minute because they didn't want those tariffs to catch on, or they didn't want me to see them there. So the Venezuela secondary tariffs, all secondary tariffs are very strong, because essentially it says if you disobey our orders, you cannot do business in the United States of America, and that's the cash cow.
Will that apply to Chinese companies buying Russian oil as well, if you plan to go ahead with those?
So if, in the case of Venezuela, as you know, China pulled up anchor and left. They were there, they had two ships there, and they left empty. They didn't want to take a chance. No, we're not playing games. Okay, any other questions?
Will you clarify, are you planning to leave office January 20th, 2029, or are you saying you might not?
Go ahead, any other questions?
TikTok. On TikTok. The deadline's coming
Working
up.
on TikTok, we have a lot of potential buyers.
They really, really, really want to know if Dog is going to run for president again. But we'll discuss this a little bit more on the Millionaire Morning Show. Y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.